An older man DM'd me a story about what happened after he found his staircase in the woods. He said he doesn't tell this story very often because he's not proud of his part in this. He wanted to be anonymous because he said he doesn't want anyone to know his history who doesn't already know it, and there's a certain stigma attached to people with mental illness, so he doesn't want to come off as crazy to anyone who might not know this history about him. Trigger warning on this story because it does get a little bit dark, a little bit violent. We're going to call him Toby to respect his privacy, and the story takes place about 10 years ago, although Toby is 56 now. He was hiking near Mammoth Cave in Kentucky with his then 15-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter. Hiking was a normal activity for them. They live not too far from there in Kentucky, but his wife wasn't with them that day. Toby said up until this point in his life, he lived a relatively normal life. He had no history of mental illness or anger issues. He had a relatively good relationship with his wife, normal squabbles, and he worked the same job for almost 20 years at that point. He said he was living a normal American suburban life. So him and his kids come across a staircase in the middle of the woods. His son immediately goes to go up it, and he goes, hey, make sure it's stable. Actually, you know what? Let me go up first. He says his family were outdoorsy people, so it wasn't the first time that they had come across a staircase in the woods. A lot of times they're just left from old settlements or whatever, but this was the first time they saw that particular staircase. So he tells his son that he's going to climb it first, and he started descending the steps. He noticed that they were very clean, despite it was fall weather. There were no leaves on the staircase. So he walks all the way up to the top. He notices it's a little bit rickety. It doesn't really seem safe for his son. So he's standing at the top. His son's like, how is it? Can I come up? And he said out of nowhere, he hears a voice clear as day say, unalive them. He said it wasn't his voice, it wasn't his son's voice, it wasn't his daughter's voice. So he is shocked. He looks around, there's nobody else out there, but he said he audibly heard the voice. So he just is like, what is going on? So he climbs down the stairs. He tells his son, don't go up there. It's not safe. The voice that he heard kind of shook him a little bit because he had never had a violent urge toward his children. He loved them very much. They're driving home and he's struck with the urge to drive into oncoming traffic. They get home. His wife's like, how was the hike? He tells her it was fine. He doesn't tell her about the voice or anything. He said in the first few weeks after that hike, his mood changed. It was like a gray fog settled over everything. He was getting angry at very minor inconveniences. He was often hearing voices that told him to harm himself and others. He would wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares and cold sweats. And him and his wife, we're going to just call her Kelly, they were arguing about everything. He would snap at her, and on one occasion he put his hands on her, which he says he still regrets to this day. After that happened, I guess he gave her a black eye. She took the kids and they were all staying at her sister's house, and his voices only got worse. He was still going to work. He was trying to manage it. He had actually made an appointment with a therapist to try to get it under control, but before he went to the therapist's office, he ends up snapping at his boss over a minor email. I guess the boss said that he forgot to do something, and he marched into his boss's office and threatened his life. He said while he was staring at his boss, he was fuming. He looked at a pen that was sitting on his boss's table, and he had to fight the urge to stab him through the throat. Obviously, he gets fired. Security gets called. He is escorted out. He's driving home when a guy cuts him off in traffic. They pull up at a light. The guy and him are MFing each other through the window, and all of a sudden he just snaps. He gets out of his car. He goes over to the other guy's car, tries the door. It opens. He pulls the guy out and beats the ever-living crap out of him. He said he beat him so badly that the man started having seizures, and he continued to kick him in the head. Obviously, he's arrested. He ends up getting an aggravated assault charge. He goes to jail. He was sentenced to 3 years, but he said for good behavior, he was released after 18 months. After he was released, part of his release parole was court-ordered therapy. In therapy, he is diagnosed as a schizophrenic, and he said he's still living with that diagnosis today. He's trying to manage it. He still hears the voices. A lot of times they talk about going back to the staircase in the woods. He says he still continues to have nightmares about it. He is working on rebuilding the relationship with his kids, who have started kind of coming back around. He says he's turned to God. He's turned his life around, but every day is a struggle living with these voices. He says the staircase in the woods phenomenon is a rabbit hole, and he's explored it to the ends of the earth. A lot of other people, I guess, have gone up staircases and felt like they had something negative attached to them after ascending the stairs. He says his therapist just tells him that it's a mental disorder and that he is doing everything he can to manage it. But he ended his email with a warning. He said if you come across a staircase in the woods, absolutely don't go up it. And if you feel like you're struggling with mental health, it's better to talk to somebody now. Thanks, Toby, for sharing your story. I know it's really heavy. I wish you all the best and healing, and I hope everything gets better for you. Everybody else, keep sending me your spooky, weird, unbelievable things you think that no one would ever believe you or you don't want to tell. Keep sending me those stories. I'll keep adding them to this playlist.
This story is one of the scarier ones that I have ever gotten because it has to do with the skinwalker actually hurting somebody. I've never heard of that before. So use your headphones and say a prayer because we're about to go on a wild ride. Before I get started, I just want to say don't forget to subscribe to my YT channel. The link is in my my bio. I post different scary stories over there than I do on here, and the same ones. Also, if you want to tell me your true scary story, my email is in my bio. It's kaisespooky@gmail.com. So here we go. So this story was sent to me by a girl named Samantha, and when Samantha was 16 or 17 years old, she was hanging out in the woods in Colorado with her friends. The area was really cute with a lot of houses around it, but they wanted to go in a more desolate area, so they started kind of roaming around the woods. They go on this curvy driveway that they think is going to take them to a house, but it doesn't take them to a house. It takes them to this little fire pit area where people are kind of like camping. Now, meanwhile, they're in their car right now driving around. They're not walking around, they're driving. So they stop their car in this area because they see that there's a bunch of trees that are dead, but there's some trees that are alive, and this is weird to them. So they pull over and they stop and they see a tree that looks like it's been struck by lightning. So they go to this tree, and one interesting thing about this tree is that it's surrounded by bones, and they think that it's animal bones, but she said that some of them didn't look like animal bones. They looked like other bones. But they try not to think about this because this could just be animal bones. So they go over there, they're laughing, they're talking, they're taking pictures, and then they stop and they start telling each other scary stories. And then Samantha brings up the fact that she can actually talk to the dead, that she's a sensitive. And all of her friends are like, you're lying. No, you're not. You can't talk to the dead. That's insane. And Samantha is like, yes, I can. And just to let you know, there is something out here. I can feel it. Like, I have always felt it every single time we come out here. There's something out here. They decide to go to another campsite, and they actually end up running into some friends that have a camper there. So they're like, oh, great. This is so fun. We can all hang out together. So they all start hanging out, and they're just chilling when all of a sudden they hear this screeching sound and then this whistling. So they're all looking at each other and they're like, what the hell was that? But one of the friends that was in the camper that they had run into said that they had been hearing this noise all day long. They had just been hearing whistling and screeching, like a piercing screeching sound all day long. And they start getting in the topic of SWs. They're getting in deep conversation about SWs. They're talking about how they can harm you, how you can call upon them, all of that stuff. When all of her friends that she came with just started to get super freaked out. And they were all like, listen, we want to go home. But Samantha didn't want to go home. She wanted to stay and investigate. And she said that this was the worst decision she could have made. But she does. She stays in and she investigates with her friends. So Samantha stays with her friends that live in the camper, and they're just hanging out and they're chit-chatting and they're talking about this SW topic. Now they're in the camper at this point and they're just talking when all of a sudden they hear this tap, 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 tap on the camper. So they're all sitting there looking at each other like, what the hell is that? When then it turns into banging, bang, 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 bang on the door. Then screeching again, that whistling. Now this is all happening at once, and it's incredibly chaotic, and they start freaking out. Every single one of them are the most terrified they have ever been in their lives. But one of them, I guess a super brave one, decides that he's going to take a pew-pew and he's going to go outside and check it out. Why? I do not know. But as soon as they get out there, everything stops. They don't see anything. And they decide to fire a shot into the woods. Still, nothing. Silence. They don't hear anything. After all that chaos, they hear nothing. Then the woods get really quiet, and I mean really quiet. It's now dead silent, and they're all out there standing there looking at each other when one of her friends goes, ow! And something is wrong with her back. She's like, my back, my back, my back. And so they turn, they lift up her shirt, they look at her back, and she has a huge claw mark down her back. Like, this is deep. So they take her inside the camper, they shut the door, and they're checking out her back. So they are inside trying to take care of her friend's back because they need to bandage it up. When they decide that they're going to go back out there to see if there's anything out there again, because this was just very crazy. So they go out there, and she steps outside, and immediately she has this overwhelming feeling of fear, just this heavy presence. And she knows that if she looks to her right, she is going to see something. But she does turn her head, and what she sees is absolutely terrifying. She sees a creature with yellow, red, bloodshot eyes. It has horns that wrap around so many times she could not even count. Its complexion looked rotten. Its hands and feet were super long. It had a smile so sinister that she literally thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. When it just looks at her, smiles at her, it's just staring at her, smiling at her, and it takes its long finger and it just tap, tap, taps on the camper, just taunting her, looking at her, smiling, tap, tap, tap. And then it just starts whistling as it's tapping, and she can see its mouth move in the motion of like whistling. So she could see its mouth go. And this freaks her out. So she starts screaming for her friends to come outside. She's like, please come outside right now. They all come outside and they look and they don't see anything. She's the only one that is seeing this for some reason. She's like, look right there. It is right there. And they do not see anything. When all of a sudden, one of her friends that is standing in the doorway gets thrown to the ground. She gets thrown from the camper to the ground. And all you hear is this blood-curdling scream. But it's not her screaming. It's that thing screaming. And she's on the ground. Now she's hysterically crying. They're freaking out. They see this thing rush past them. They go and pick her up and they run back in the camper. As soon as they get in the camper, her friend is hysterically crying. And then the camper starts shaking so violently back and forth that they literally think the camper is going to tip over. So Samantha is yelling, please stop, please stop, please. And she thinks that this is actually making it worse. Then they hear the door start to open. So they're rushing over to the door, shutting the door, and they decide they're going to call their family to come pick them up. So they call their family and they're like, come pick us up, please, something is happening to us. So they hear the truck a little bit later pulling up the road, and Samantha runs outside to the truck, not really thinking about what's out there. She just wants to get to her family. So she runs outside where the truck is, and as she's running, she feels this hand grab her shoulder and just squeeze into her shoulder. She looks over and it's this dark, wrinkly black hand, and she knows exactly what this thing is. And at this point, she's starting to get mad, and she's like, you know what? I have to face this thing. So she's like, I felt God with me at this point. I turn around and I literally just shoved it. I didn't feel like I pushed anything, is what she said. She said she just felt like her hands went through the air. And then she starts running back to the truck. So she tells her family that they need to go back to the camper and they need to go get her friend. So they go back to the camper, and the friend that had been thrown out of the camper is seriously hurt at this point. So she needs help. So they take her back to another family member's house of one of the friends that knows everything about skinwalkers. But apparently when she was running out to the truck, one of her other friends, the one that got thrown out of the camper, she ran after her. And when she ran after her, something threw her against the camper 3 or 4 times. So this girl is hurt. Now at this point, they try to all calm down. They try to help their friend and they sage themselves and they start praying. But Samantha says that this is not the first or last time that she has seen this thing. She doesn't know whether it is an SW or whether it is a demon, but she thinks that it's an SW. She thinks that unfortunately this thing may be attached to her. So she wants to know what you guys think. And she also wants to know if anyone else has ever experienced anything like this, because this was absolutely insane. And she knows that it was hard to believe, but she said that this is absolutely 100% true. And she needs to know if anyone else has ever seen anything like this before, or if anyone has ever been hurt before by a skinwalker. So just drop that in the comments. Also, if you have any questions for her, if you have any questions for me, and just your thoughts on this, really. She wants to know what your thoughts are. I love you guys so much. Seriously, you guys are the best. Thank you for all your sweet comments and everyone that has supported me. Every single one of you are absolutely just the best. I love you. Also, if you like true scary stories, I tell them every single night. I take stories that you have submitted to me through my email and I retell them on here. So again, if you would like me to recount your true scary story, my email is in my bio. Feeling Girl's having a shapewear sale right now where you can get 2 of these for like $45 when they're normally like $80 for 2 of them. I absolutely love this. The material is so stretchy and it sucks you in right here so much. It takes a minute to get on, but it is worth it. I absolutely love these tank tops. My favorite color is the red one, and you can get 2 of them, like I said, for $45. I will drop the link for you guys right there. Other than that, I hope you guys have the best night ever, and I just need you to do one thing for me, and what is that? Have a spooky night. I'll see you guys in the next one. Love you.
Let's read some scary Reddit stories about being home alone. A couple years back, I woke up at 3 a.m. to see someone walk past my bedroom door. I called out in my just woken up, not thinking haze, thinking maybe my boyfriend had come over while I was sleeping, but got no response, so knew it wasn't him. Got out of bed, stupidly forgetting to take my phone or any kind of defensive item with me, and went into the front room where the light was on to be met with a random guy staring at one of the walls. I asked who he was and got no answer. At this point, I'd actually woken up enough to realize I could really be in trouble, so I ran back to the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and ran outside on the phone to the police, who showed up within a few minutes. Turns out the guy was mentally ill, and to this day, myself nor the police know how he got in. I moved into our house a month before my husband did, and I was painting our guest room with the windows wide open. I was busy painting, listening to music, when I realized it had gotten dark outside. I heard the leaves crunching outside, but didn't think anything of it because we have a lot of neighbors who walk their dogs. When I went to close the windows, I saw a man standing in my backyard under the tree, maybe 5 feet from our back door, staring up at me. I fell to the floor and realized the back glass door was probably open and nothing but the screen, which he could have easily just walked into my house. Crawled to my phone and called my husband, who then called 911 while rushing home to me. We have a 6-foot-tall fence around our yard. This person hopped it to watch me. I couldn't sleep right at night for months. I was babysitting a kid who had a video monitor and was told that she wouldn't wake up while the parents were out, and if she did, to call them right away. I was watching TV with the monitor set off to the side to keep an eye on her, and right around 11, the camera's view shifted a few inches. It then began to slightly jiggle like someone was messing with it. I was squinting at it, trying to decide what I was actually seeing, and I kid you not, the whole screen burst to static for a few seconds, and the kid started wailing. She stood up and was screaming in her crib just like one of those kids from The Sims. When she didn't fall back asleep after a few minutes, I called Mom and she said, "Okay, we're on our way home anyway. We think she has nightmares. Sometimes it's fine. Never again." Yeah, I would not be babysitting that kid anymore. No. I was about 21 or 22 and living by myself at the time, and I left my window open on a pleasant night. It was low enough to the ground that you could get in if you really tried. Bitch. But the screen wasn't easy to take off, and I lived in a fairly safe neighborhood, so I didn't even think twice about it. Woke up in the middle of the night because I smelled smoke, and I reached out to turn on my lamp, and my hand hit what was very obviously a person! My brain fully woke up at that point, and I realized there was a shirtless man in my bedroom smoking a cigarette and staring at me. I remember yelling for him to get out, and I must have spooked him just as badly as he spooked me because he leapt out of my window and took off. I slammed it shut and moved a bookcase in front of it, and when I went out the next morning in the daylight, I found the screen sitting against the house. Didn't sleep the rest of the night, and I haven't slept with a window more than cracked ever since. I absolutely refuse to live on the ground floor of a building. I don't know if he was planning to rob me or grape me or both, but it was absolutely terrifying and makes me wonder how many times it happened and I didn't wake up. Yeah, I don't care how safe of a neighborhood you think you live in. Do not sleep with your frickin' windows open, okay? No. I was home from university for the summer and didn't have a job, so was home alone whilst everyone else was at work. I live in a small village on a quiet street, so completely normal to have all the windows and doors open during the day. Later on in the afternoon, I got a call from my dad. He said, "I'm around the corner but struggling to get into the street. I'll explain when I'm home, but lock all the doors, close the windows, and go upstairs?" This was obviously strange. We don't live in a bad area, and my dad's sense of humor isn't that mean, but the tone in his voice made me do it without hesitation. Everything closed and locked, and upstairs I go. A few minutes later, I get a second call from my dad. He said, "Some police are going to be going through the side gate into the back garden to check the shed. I'll be home soon." Again, I was terrified, but knew just to ask later. Stayed upstairs, but did see armed police checking the back garden. When my dad finally got home, I obviously asked what had happened. Turns out some 16-year-old kid on our street had taken some legal highs, stabbed a neighbor, then did a runner. Absolutely terrifying, but a sad part is they found him at night because he is scared of the dark and came out of hiding. Okay, so he stabbed somebody, and we're feeling bad for him because he's scared of the dark? When I was 19 in my first apartment, I had someone knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw this burly, heavy-set man who abruptly started screaming to let him in. He was screaming things like he was going to beat my ass and kick the door down if I didn't open it. I called the cops, and as soon as someone got on the phone, he started body slamming my door to break in. I was freaking out and crying as they quickly had 5 cops show up within 5 minutes. As soon as he heard the sirens, he quickly walked away, and they met him at the bottom of the stairs. Apparently, he was the previous renter but was extremely intoxicated. They arrested him, and thankfully he never came back. I ended up breaking my lease and moving out 3 months later.
The story time I'm about to share with you is in the top 3 most unsettling emails I've received since starting Spooky Scary Storytime. It came from an ecologist who claims that his superior, his boss, was not of the human race. You can skip to this part if you want to start the story right now, but I feel like there's a few disclaimers that I have to get off my chest before I start this story. First off, I'm only going to tell you what he said in the email. I'm not going to inject my own opinion because we listen, we don't judge. Second of all, he does not follow me, but his daughter is a fan of Spooky Scary Storytime, which is how he found me and why he submitted his story. Apparently, she's been following very closely the Diorb bags videos, and she thought that this was relevant somehow to what's going on. The Diorb bags is a whole nother rabbit hole, so go down that if you haven't. But third, this man sent me this email from his real name. He asked me to please keep him anonymous because his career is on the line, which is why he's never told this story publicly. He said he's very well respected in an academic and professional sense. Literally the reason I get the good stories is because I respect people's anonymity. Finally, before I start the story, I'm going to censor certain words because media in general does censor a little bit certain things. So you're going to have to fill in some blanks, but I will try to make them as clear and concise as possible. This man said I could refer to him as Dr. Corbin. He's been an ecologist for the last 20 years. He's extremely well respected. He has published papers. He has contributed to scientific journals. He's a big deal. Sometime in the last 20 years, he was doing a research expedition at Yasuni National Park in Ecuador. It is part of the Amazon rainforest, and he said it's extremely unique in that it's one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, and it has extremely unique climatic conditions. To put it simply, he was there to study biodiversity. He said these research expeditions usually last anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, but this specific expedition was 8 weeks, and he was there with a few people that he knew, but it was a relatively large team. One of the guys he's there with, he went to school with to get his PhD, and he knew him relatively well. He said that this man had never said anything about like fringe theories, like he was very scientific minded. He said his entire team was working under the supervision and hand of somebody named Dr. Vola, not her real name. He had never met Dr. Vola, but she communicated with them pretty much just through email, and a few of his bosses that were on site knew her. His friend who he went to school with had also met Dr. Vola on a previous project. So after 2 weeks, when the team was there, Dr. Vola was coming out to the station where they were all staying. And the night before she gets there, Dr. Corbin is asking Dr. Joe, like, what's she like, like what's she like working with? And Dr. Joe just says point blank to him, she's a lizard. Not what he said, but you know what I'm saying. He said there was no sense of like sarcasm, of like joking in his voice. So Dr. Corbin's like, what do you mean she's a lizard? And Dr. Joe is like, yeah, like you'll see when you meet her. Like everyone knows, everyone accepts it, but that's just what she is. Dr. Corbin obviously thinks he's joking and doesn't take him seriously because, again, he had known Dr. Joe since they were in school, and Dr. Joe had never exhibited any, like, conspiracy theorist tendencies. He had never said anything like that before, so he's like, obviously he's messing with me. Dr. Corbin said at this point in his email that he's experienced a lot of strange things that he can't explain in his work. He's experienced weird animal noises, weird animal behaviors, weird noises in the jungle, weird lights in the sky, but nothing could have prepared him for meeting Dr. Vola. She arrives the next day. He said the first thing he noticed about her was her complexion was one of the things that made her beautiful. He said it was like glass. Like, he didn't know the words then because this was before social media, but he said it was like she was wearing a filter in real life. But he wasn't trying to flirt with her. Obviously, she was his boss. He was actually intimidated by her because not only was she stunning, but she was incredibly smart, and she appeared to be a lot younger than him, even though he was relatively young when this happened. He said that was surprising to him because when she arrived on site, he expected some respected doctor that had been in the field for 20 or 30 years. When she gets there, she basically doesn't interact with anyone, but she gives people certain assignments. And he said the second thing he noticed was her movements. They were almost too smooth, like they were calculated. Like she was trying to figure out a way to fit in naturally with other people she was around. The day after she arrives, her and the team venture out into the jungle. They're working on something. And he said he noticed that her skin was weird in the sunlight, like it was almost reflective. But then he thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him. It was so hot. And then he realized she wasn't sweating. So he started paying attention to it the next few days. She never had a bead of sweat anywhere on her. Every night the team ate together. She would always remove herself from the situation. She never ate with the team. She never had a snack. She claimed that she had certain allergy restrictions that prevented her from eating normal food. Not that weird, but what was weird to Dr. Corbin was that she always seemed to be near animals in their final moments. Dr. Corbin said he really didn't recognize it at first because in the rainforest, creatures succumb all the time to predation, illness, or just the elements of the rainforest. But after about a week, her proximity to their final moments became too obvious and too frequent to ignore. In one case, he said they were tracking a giant anteater for a few weeks. It was an elder male, it was scarred, it was majestic, and they had been monitoring its activity for a few weeks. One night, their GPS tracker on the giant anteater stopped tracking. It was later in the afternoon, but it was still light out, so Dr. Corbin and a few of his colleagues went out to find it. And they come to it, and they see Dr. Vola crouched over it. Her face is almost touching it, but when she saw them, she stood up and straightened herself. She muttered something about checking for signs of it being attacked by a predator, but the team took samples and they concluded that it had passed from natural causes. But what struck Dr. Corbin was Dr. Vola's behavior later that night. She seemed energized. She seemed like she was invigorated by something. He said when they returned to the base, her movements were sharper and quicker, like she had just had a surge of adrenaline. It wasn't just the anteater. After that, he noticed if something was dying, she was there. It was birds, frogs, small mammals, and every time she seemed to have a surge of energy afterward, like she fed off of it. He said obviously he has no way to prove it, but he felt like she was feeding off of something, their life force, their distress. He said over the next few weeks, Dr. Vola spoke very little, but when she did, she seemed to reveal information that she couldn't have possibly known. The results of experiments before they had concluded, the location of animals before they looked at the tracker. One evening, he decides he's going to joke with her. He's like, Dr. Vola, you are psychic, or you have a satellite feed in your brain. He said that her reaction stunned him. She stopped what she was doing, stared him dead in the eyes, unblinking, and said, Dr. Corbin, jokes are dangerous, and you don't want to ask questions with answers that you can't live with. He laughed nervously, but she just turned and walked away, and later that night she approached him when he was alone. She asked him if he knows how fragile humans are and how easily they can fall apart. Then she tells him that the jungle respects strength, not fragility, and honesty, not jokes. Dr. Corbin said his breaking point on this project came a few weeks later. He was watching the night trail cams and he spotted something odd in the trees. It was about human size, but it moved like a reptile. It had reflective eyes and it moved with a speed unbeknownst to him. He said at this point in his career he was very familiar with most of the species that lived in the rainforest and he had no idea what this was. The timestamp the video showed was during one of Dr. Vola's solo patrols. The next morning he confronts her and he tells her basically like, I think the light or the camera messed up because like look at what I found. And she watches the footage and she looks at him and she says delete it. And he was like, I don't know what it is. Like, look at the elongated neck. I think we should study this. Like, we should try to find whatever this is. And she leans in closer and she says, delete it. He tells her he would, but he didn't. And then later that day when he checked his laptop, the footage was gone. A few weeks later, the project concluded and he went home. He's back in the US now and he has not worked with Dr. Vola since, but he said he believes that some things walk among us that are not human, even if they appear to be. I'm genuinely curious your thoughts on this. Please let me know what you think, if you know what this was, if you believe that she really was a lizard, or if you think he's full of it. Dr. Corbin, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really enjoyed this story, even though it is unsettling to me, because I always am impressed or taken aback whenever I receive a story that's from someone who is from a walk of life that I would never experience. Everybody else keep sending me your spooky, weird, things you think that no one would believe stories, and I will keep adding them to this playlist.
This spooky story submission is actually so terrifying that it led to the person who was telling me the story to end up in the hospital because of this. So for the story, we're going to call her Danielle, and I'm going to tag her below. We're calling her Danielle because that's what her childhood friends and her family used to call her. So until Danielle was about 14 or 15 years old, she lived on 78 acres of land. She said that in that 78 acres of land, only about 3 other people lived on that land. So it was a pretty secluded area, and Danielle really liked to play outside. That was her favorite thing to do. Loved watching the deers, the rabbits, but her favorite was climbing trees. Something that really bothered her though is that her mother would never let her play outside after dark, and we're talking like not even after the sunset, as the sun started setting. She didn't like this, but she obviously obeyed it because it was her mother and so she had to. Until one day, her mother decides that she is going to go out to a friend's house and Danielle doesn't want to go with her. But if Danielle doesn't go with her, it means that she's going to be left alone. Her and her mother decide that this is okay and that Danielle is old enough to handle this, so she stays home alone and her mom leaves at about 3 p.m. Danielle decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to play in the woods. She said that she was outside climbing trees when she felt this overwhelming feeling of being watched. It was overwhelming and it felt like it was coming from above her. But she keeps looking up and she's not seeing anything, so she's thinking that maybe her mind's just playing tricks on her, and she kind of shrugs it off. At some point it starts to get dark and she knows that she's supposed to go home, but she doesn't want to go home, and she's home alone so she can do what she wants, so she decides that she's going to stay outside. At around 7:30 p.m. when the sun had already set, she starts hearing a noise, and it's her mother calling her name. She's calling for her to come home. So Danielle is like, oh crap, I gotta get home. So she starts walking home, but she still has this overwhelming feeling of being watched, when all of a sudden she starts hearing twigs and leaves snapping behind her. So she looks behind her, but she doesn't see anything. She finally gets home and she realizes that her mom is not home. So while she's outside, she calls her mom and she's like, Mom, were you home? Like, I just heard you calling my name. And her mom was like, I have not been home this entire time. I'm still at my friend's house. She said this really freaked her out and she decided to turn around and look in the woods, and she looked over and she sees a dark figure standing outside in the woods. This freaks her out, so she runs inside, she slams the door, and she deadbolts it shut. She then goes over to the window and she looks outside of her blinds to see if it's still there, and of course it is not there. She again decides that she's going to shrug this off. Maybe her eyes are just playing tricks on her, and she decides to make dinner. This feeling of being watched, this overwhelming feeling, follows her until the morning. And she said that she didn't feel like she was being watched by one thing, she felt like she was being watched by like several things. She decides to go to her camera because they have cameras in the house, and there's a new video popped up, and I'm assuming that they were motion censored. She didn't say in the email, but she did say that there was a new video, so she looks at it and she doesn't see anything, but she hears this tapping sound on their front door. It's important to note right now that their front door is a big metal door that her mom had put in when they very first moved in. Nothing is on the camera. She cannot see anything, so she decides that she's going to go outside and she's going to look at the door. Outside on the door, there are huge claw marks on this metal big door. She said that she then realized that this could not have been an animal, because if it was an animal, number one, why is it trying to get into her house? And number two, how could it make these claw marks on this big metal door her mom had installed? So this really freaked her out. So I think her way of just coping with things was just shrugging it off. So she does just that, and she goes out in the woods again, and around 7:50 p.m. she's playing in the tree, climbing it again, and she gets that overwhelming feeling again. This feeling again is feeling like it's coming from above. So she decides to look above her again, and what she saw was terrifying. She said that she looked up, and when she looked up, she saw the most figure she had ever seen in her life looking at her. Not only was it looking at her, but it was calling her name, her real name, not Danielle, her real name. But not only was it calling her name, it was in her mother's voice again. Danielle is absolutely terrified at this, and she starts bolting home, and the entire time she's running home, she can hear this thing running after her. She calls her mother on her way home, and she was absolutely bawling her eyes out. Her mom gets home and she assures her that it's nothing, and that everything is going to be okay, and that it's not a big deal, and that she was probably just seeing things. Danielle did say that this experience was so distraught to her and scared her so badly that she actually ended up being hospitalized for 2 or 3 months because of it. She said she couldn't eat, sleep, drink, nothing. The crazy thing about this is that this is not even the only thing that happened to Danielle. Something else happened to her that even traumatized her further. This is getting really long, so I'm gonna have to make a part 2 on it. If you guys want to hear that second part, that partly also contributed to her being in the hospital, then drop it in the comments and I will make a part 2 and tell you guys that story. That story is even scarier. So what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think this was? Like, this terrified her so much that she's still in therapy to this day. And the second thing that happened to her definitely didn't help at all. So drop in the comments for part 2. Also, if you guys have anything to say to her or anything to like help her feel better, please also drop that in the comments. She could use all the love and support that she could get right now. She is going to see it. I am going to tag her. Thank you so much for your submission, Danielle, and thank you for letting me tag you. You are the first person that has let me tag you, so I appreciate that. And if you guys want to send me your true scary stories, then there's an email in my bio. Just go ahead and email me there, and I will come on here and I will tell your story. You do not have to be tagged if you do not want to. My name is Kaisa. I tell you scary stories that are true every single night. So if you like that, then hit that follow button, engage from the bottom up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much and have a spooky night.
Not to be dramatic, but if I dropped dead tomorrow and woke up in hell, it would probably take me 2 to 3 full days to realize that I was not just in another HR-backed team building workshop with my coworkers.
A fisherman named Jack emailed me, and he told me he's seen a siren in deep waters twice, and he's starting to have feelings for her. He said he has not told anyone in his real life, including his wife, but he thinks that if anyone's going to believe him, it's going to be me and the people on this channel. So I'm going to tell you what he said. Jack is not his real name, by the way, but he said he's been a fisherman for 18 years. His father did it before him, his grandfather before that, and it's not pretty work, but it's honest. It's long days and even longer nights. He's out of Gloucester, Massachusetts. I'm probably butchering that. I'm so sorry. And he runs a gill netter. I think that's a type of boat, and he hauls mostly cod and haddock. In his email, he said, I always thought I'd die on the water someday, but now I think I know how. And that, honestly, when I read that, just like shook me. He said the first time he saw her was sometime last year. He was standing by the rail on the boat. They were hauling in the last set of the day. I think that means the last catch of the day. They were about 10 miles off the coast of Thatcher Island, if that's familiar to anyone. He's standing there stretching, and he sees something bobbing in the water. And he doesn't really think anything of it because he thinks it's just a marine animal. But in a matter of seconds, it bobbed closer to the boat, and it had a woman's face, and she was pale. He said she had long black hair that floated behind her. At first, he actually thought it was seaweed. And he said her eyes, Jesus, her eyes weren't right. He said her eyes were too dark, too deep. He said, I swear to you, Ashley, it was like her eyes were peeling me open. So he was just staring at her. He said he couldn't move, even though he wanted to call out to the other guys or take his phone out or do something. And then she smiled at him, but it wasn't a friendly smile. He said it was insidious, like she knew something he didn't. Then she disappeared under the water. It was like a split second, like she was gone. Then the boat started acting weird. Their GPS cut out for no reason. Their radios weren't working properly. A couple weeks later, he thought he heard a woman humming on the deck, but he was alone. He said he thought he was just tired and losing it a little bit. They were working a lot, and he does not believe in sirens or mermaids or anything like that. But then he saw her again. He said they were out past Stellwagen Bank. None of this is familiar to me, so I'm so sorry. Please, somebody correct me. He said it was a calm night, barely a ripple on the water. He's out on the boat having a smoke. Said it was dead silent except for the lapping of the water against the boat, and he looks out and about 10 yards away, he sees her again just floating there looking at him. And he said then she whispered his name. He said even though she was far away, he heard it like it was somebody whispering right in his ear. He said he had chills head to toe. He says he hasn't seen her since, but there's an old fisherman's tale among old timers in his area and the people he grew up with, which is once a siren sets her eyes on you, you're marked. He said that they say that you can go inland, get as far away from the water as you want, but it doesn't matter. She'll call you back. And when you go, you don't come home. Now, the thing is, even though he hasn't seen her, he admitted in his email that he has started to have dreams about her face floating in the water. But he's not disgusted by it. He's curious. He wants to see her again. He said when his wife kisses him now, he kind of recoils because he feels like he's cheating on this woman floating in the water. He said he's not told his crew. He has not told his wife. That's part of the reason he wanted to be anonymous. He says he doesn't know what she wants, but he knows she's waiting. He said he will be going back on the water because that's his job. That's his family's livelihood. And he doesn't know if he can resist her. A couple things about this. This story was actually sent in to me in December. So I hadn't actually even gotten to this email yet. I searched my inbox because somebody yesterday had said, oh, do you have any stories about mermaids or sirens? So I searched both terms. And this is the only story that I have related to either of those topics. I hope Jack is okay. I haven't heard from him since. I obviously emailed him back this morning saying I was going to cover his story. But yeah, I don't even know if he knows I'm making this video or if he'll see this video, but let me know your thoughts. Do you think it's just his mind playing tricks on him? I feel like I've heard that if someone's out at sea for a long time, you start seeing things like the same as if you're in the desert, you start hallucinating. But I told my husband I was going to do this video and I read him the email and he was like, oh, there was a video a couple months ago that went pretty viral of a guy who caught a siren singing. So I looked it up and it's in the same area. I don't know the same area specifically in the ocean, but it's off the coast of Massachusetts. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Also, I have a siren tattoo. See? Anyway, keep sending me your spooky, scary stories.
I'm sorry, but why the f are we taking taxes out of the paychecks of 15 to 17-year-olds when they are not allowed to vote? Is that not the definition of taxation without representation?
This may be the scariest story ever that I've ever heard. A guy writes his experience and he says that his wife started peeking at him. At first it was pranks. So he'd be like in the kitchen cooking his dinner and he'd notice or he'd feel like someone was watching him and he'd turn around and his wife was just... He said that it always used to make him jump, make him scared. She was hiding behind walls, under tables, and she'd never like say anything. When she was caught, she'd just run away. She started doing it in really obscure places, like she'd get in an ottoman and just have her eyes poking out. It really started to freak him out and scare him, so he used to shout at her. And then he said that it kind of stopped for a bit. And while they were having dinner one night, he said, oh, you're not peeking at me anymore. And she said, maybe I'm just getting better at it and you're not noticing me. So then it starts getting creepy again and he's noticing her a bit more. It's scaring him even more that she's not reacting to it. She's not laughing. She's not going, hey, I got you. She just runs away, walks away and never acknowledges it. And there's one time where he's in the bathroom and he's hearing like this weird sound. And he gets in the shower, he's locked the bathroom door. And when he turns after being in the shower for God knows how many minutes, she's peeking around the curtain at him and her hair and her face is soaking wet and it really scares him. So he shouts at her saying like, this needs to stop. And she goes and he gets out the shower and he locks the bathroom door because he's too scared to be around his wife. And he says he's in the room for 45, 50 minutes and he starts hearing this like really like heavy breathing, but like excited breathing. And he thinks that she's next to the door, but he's too scared to look underneath the door in case she's under there staring. And then he says that he's working up the courage to unlock the door when he notices the cupboard in the bathroom door is slightly ajar and she's just been in that cupboard. I feel sick saying this. She's just standing in this cupboard just staring at him for 45, 50 minutes and she looks excited that he's caught her out. So he unlocks the door, he runs to the bedroom, grabs the bag and gets in his car and drives away because he's like, I don't want to live like this. It's gone further than a prank. She's scaring me. He goes to his brother's house and he tries to explain like what's going on and his brother's like, yeah, okay then. And his brother's wife's like, I think she's just playing a prank. And he's like, no, it's gone beyond a prank. it's terrifying. It's like she's haunting me. She's a creep. And then his wife starts texting him saying like, where have you gone? Why are you doing this? But never apologising, never saying sorry. And he just replies like, you know what you're doing until you admit to what you're doing and it stops. I'm not coming home. He decides to stay the night at his brother's house. And when they're all getting ready for bed, they're in the lounge. She's there at the window and there's like saliva marks on the window and she's just staring at them and they all get creeped out, they all scream, and then she's gone. And he's like, look, I'm telling you, there's something wrong with her. So he calls her mum and he says, look, what's going on? And this mum just declines even talking about it. She's like, I don't have time for this, bye. She obviously knows something's going on. He stays at his brother's house for a while. I don't know how long, but he says he's there for a while. And he finally needs to get more clothes and he works up the courage to go to the house. So when they get to the house, they open the doors and it's all dark. She's shut all the curtains. It's in the middle of the daytime, but it's dark. So the brother goes around and he's opening some curtains and they can see that the place is just trashed. And all of the like family photos have just been shattered. She's just trashed the place. And he goes upstairs to the bedroom to get his clothes. And as he's going up the stairs, he can smell rot and decay. I'd turn around. I'm not dealing with that. I'd call the police. No. Go into the bedroom and that's where like a load of the mess is. There's photos strewn over the place, broken picture frames, just shit everywhere. And he's getting his clothes. And as he lifts up a pile of his clothes, he notices an eyeball. But he says it's a small eyeball, like an animal's. And in the cupboards, there's just eyes of different shapes and sizes that are clearly just from murdered animals. And he shouts and freaks out. And his brother's like, what's going on? He's like, something isn't right here. And that's when he starts hearing like that excited, raspy breathing. And he looks under the bed and she's there just staring at him, excited that she's being caught. And he says that he was just petrified. He just stood there and he said to his brother, like, go and get help, go and get help. And his brother's like coming to the bedroom. He's like, don't come in here, go and get help. Her hands are covered in blood because she's like holding this glass and it's just been cut in her hands. And it gets down to a level and he's like, look, babe, you need help. I want to help you. After all, it's his wife, a creepy motherfucker, but it's his wife. And she reaches her hand out to him and he goes to grab it and then she stabs him with a bit of glass. And then he's like, what the fuck, bitch? And then he's just like, what? And he says that at that moment he knew that that wasn't his wife anymore and they just ran down those stairs. He said that he felt like she was running after them, but they didn't want to turn around and they got in the car and they drove away. He was too scared to go to the brother's house and so was the brother because she'd already been to this house. And he says he ended it, and we haven't had an update from him yet, but he ended it saying that he got himself in a hotel room and he says that he keeps on feeling like someone's washing him. Ugh! Imagine being haunted by your wife, by something living. That's disgusting.
I like to play a little game at home called Refrigerator Jenga, where I try to remove something from the very back without moving any of the items cluttered in front of it. And it's fun because if I win, I get my item and I feel proud of myself. And if I lose, I spend 40 minutes cleaning up marinara and broken glass off the floor.
A very popular influencer on this app slid into my DMs and she's like, I've been watching your spooky scary story times. They're always on my For You page and I have a creepy story for you, but you have to keep me anonymous. And this one is good. She told me it involves a very high profile Hollywood actor. To be fair, she did not tell me who it is, so don't be asking me because I don't know. She started her DM by saying that she's wanted to tell this story on her own page for a while, but she signed an NDA and she can't risk getting into legal trouble, but she's still curious to what people think. So she said 2 years ago she was in LA at a red carpet premiere with a friend of hers who's a model. The premiere wraps up, they go to an after party, and at the after party is a very prominent Hollywood actor. She says it's a household name, everybody knows who he is. He is significantly older than her. She's in her mid-20s. She said her and the actor were making eyes all night, but they didn't really talk except for once when they were at the bar at the same time, and he complimented her drink choice. Her and her friend decide to leave around 1:30 in the morning. They're walking toward the door. The actor is by the door. He stops them. He's like, where are y'all going? She tells him they have no plans. He's like, we should be friends on Instagram. So he adds her on Instagram. She's all excited about it, but doesn't really think anything comes of it. She said that she's used to being around very famous people and nothing ever happens. So they're in the Uber on the way back to her friend's house when he DMs her and he's like, hey, if you want to keep this party going, you can come over to my place. I can send you a car. Her friend's like gassing her up. She's like, yes, girl, go go get it. Like, she thinks they're going to hook up. So she goes back to her friend's place. He sends an Uber to pick her up and takes her to a house in the hills. She says the Uber pulls up to a gate with an intercom system, and the Uber driver's like, what do I do? And she's like, I don't even know if he knows my full name. So she tells the Uber driver his name. He's like, hey, I'm dropping off so-and-so. And there's just like silence on the other end of the intercom. So she DMs the guy. She's like, hey, I'm here. He DMs her back after like a minute, and he's like, okay, like, just go in. You beat me home. She gets dropped off, walks up to the door, knocks on the door, and like the help, I guess, answers the door. She said when she got there, she was a little bit put off because there were other people there, and the help takes her phone and has her sign an NDA. And she said that she didn't recognize anybody that was there, but there were probably like 15 people all kind of scattered around the living room and the kitchen, just drinking and making themselves at home. A lot of them were sitting around boredly, just like in like quiet conversations with each other. So she just goes and like takes a seat. He walks in after about 15 minutes and goes like straight over to her, leads her to his bedroom. They hook up. She actually said it was very vanilla, very boring. She thinks she's gonna go. He's like, do you want to go to another party? There's something else happening tonight. And she's like, okay, sure. So he leads her down this back stairwell in the back corner of one of the rooms in his house, and it's like a warehouse type garage. He's got a bunch of cars parked down there, and they get in the back of this unmarked black SUV. She says the car is driving underground in tunnels for about 20 minutes, and she's trying to make like light conversation with him, like, where are we going? Like, whose party is this? And he's just like, oh, it's a really good time. Like, you'll like it when we get there. But she said he was very stoic, like did not talk to her more than a few words at a time. The car pulls out of the tunnel, and they are in front of this big warehouse. And she said she didn't recognize anything around it. She has no idea where they were. She said probably 20 minutes in any direction from the hills. It's still dark out. They walk up to the front of this warehouse. There's like big steel doors, and there's a couple bouncers outside in like black suits. They open the doors, they let them in, and she said it's all red lit inside, and the whole warehouse was sectioned off into different areas. To her immediate left when she walked in was a bar. To the right was a small circle with a short fence surrounding the circle, and in the middle of the circle was a woman. Outside the circle was a guy dressed as a bullfighter, and there were about 20 people watching this. So she looks at the actor and she's like, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's kind of like an art installation. Like, there's just different spectacles to see. She said some areas were not that abnormal. Like, one area just had a tarot card reader. She said there was another area with just some couches and speakers and a DJ. And in that area, the DJ was just playing this like very electronic, bass heavy music with metal noises. And there were people with power tools making sparks fly everywhere. I don't know. So they're just sitting in there having some drinks, listening to the music for a little while, when she feels somebody tap her, and she turns around and there's a guy standing with a wolf mask on, in like normal street clothes, but just like a giant wolf mask with the mouth open. And he's like, hey, and the actor she's with grabs her and like pulls her away. And she's like, what was that? And he's like, you're not ready for that crowd yet. They're walking around looking at all the different installations or exhibits, I guess. And they get to like a far back corner. And she said there were two people, a man and a woman, and they were blindfolded. And in front of them on the floor was a bunch of broken glass. And she said when they got over there were like 40 people all standing around, like watching them. And the people all watching them were encouraging them to like take steps forward. She said she looked down at their feet and could tell that at some points they had misstepped and stepped on broken glass. Both the man and the woman were standing still when somebody in the crowd threw a glass at them and was like, move. So she got upset at this point, and she like grabs the actor and she's like, I don't like this. Like, I want to go. And he tries to calm her down. He's like, everybody that is here willingly. Like, it's with consent. It's just an installation. I told you that. And she's like, I don't like this. It's creeping me out. Like, I want to leave. So he's reluctant, but he agrees. So they go back outside. They get in the black unmarked SUV and they start driving, but they don't go back in the tunnel. They're taking a different road, and she doesn't recognize anything. So they're driving for like 10 minutes. Mind you, she still doesn't have her phone, and they pull up to this gas station. The car stops. He's like, this is your stop. The driver hands her phone, and they're like, get out. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know where I am. He's like, get out. So she gets out of the car, and the car pulls away. She opens Insta to DM him, and he already has blocked her. So she has to call her own Uber. She said it took like 10 minutes for the guy to get there, and then it was 40 minutes till she got home. She said she's been wondering literally for like 2 years now what she saw at that party, especially with everything that's coming out about Hollywood. So she's curious to what you guys think. It did come from her actual account, and like this could be a made up story. However, I did look at her account. Like, she is huge on this app. I don't know why she would lie about this, especially being anonymous. Let me know what you think, and keep sending me your spooky scary stories, and I'll keep adding them to this playlist. Also, I have polls on my Insta every day on the next spooky scary story I tell.
You're quiet. Yeah. I'm trying to gauge how awkward and myself I can be in this new social situation. So I will be quiet until then. And then once I figure it out, you'll probably wish that I would go back to being quiet.
This is one of the creepiest private investigator stories I've ever read. Honestly, weird. One day, a private investigator receives a call, quite a frantic call, from an elderly sounding gentleman. He says that his wife is out to get him. Now, the PI is used to receiving calls like this, usually from men saying the wife's cheating on him, stealing from him, or out to get him. So it's like, look, calm down. I'll have some space in the next few weeks. We'll catch up and talk over your case then. The elderly gentleman says, no, I really need to see you today. I'll pay you more. And that makes the PI be like, yeah, I'm free. Come to my office now. This elderly gentleman arrives literally 30 minutes later. He looks quite dishevelled, looks quite distressed, like he's just pulled on whatever clothes he could find, hasn't even bothered brushing his hair. He sits down and he just says, my wife is out to get me, I'm scared, I really, really need your help. Says that every morning for the past 6 months he's been woken up at 3:30 a.m. by the sound of dogs barking. He doesn't have a dog, and he says it doesn't sound like a normal dog bark. It's really disorientating, like somebody else is making the sound or they're playing a sound. At first the noise would just wake him up and he'd go back to bed, but one day he decided to get up when he heard the sound. That's when he turned and looked in the doorway of his bedroom, and what he saw shocked him. He saw his wife standing in the doorway, just staring at him, motionless, but behind her were two of her friends, just doing the same thing, just staring. Bear in mind, these are like elderly people, like 70, 80 years old. But the weirdest thing, his wife is asleep next to him. First, he thought he was dreaming. It was sleep paralysis. By the time he reached for his glasses or stepped out his bed, the figures were gone. His wife, well, the wife in the doorway, her two friends, they were gone. But the back door was left unlocked, and so was the gate outside, meaning that someone was entering his house. Like I said, his wife was always asleep next to him. So he used to say to her, I need you to get up. I need you to see these people. And she's saying, you're dreaming, you know, you're getting old. We're getting old. It's normal. It's sleep paralysis. The PI's expecting maybe it's a little bit early on dementia. Maybe it's some dreams, lucid dreaming, but he wants to get paid. He's thinking this guy's going to pay up. So he says, right, tomorrow morning, I'll stake out your house for you. I'll get some photos and I'll let you know if I see anyone coming. The PI parks outside of the house at 9 p.m. and he sees the old man's wife come back from her book club, walking home, sees the lights on for a little while, and at about 11 p.m. they go to bed. But around 3 a.m. he notices that everything around him goes eerily still and eerily quiet. Then he's shocked because at 3:30 he hears the sounds of dogs barking. But it's like the elderly man said, it's like multiple dogs barking. It's like every single dog in the nearby area is just barking all at once. He stays in his car and he looks out his windows, and as he looks in his rearview mirror, he sees 3 women in long green hooded gowns just pop up like NPC characters. He's taking photos of these women as they're walking up the road towards the elderly gentleman's house, and he can't quite believe what he's seeing. But as these women walk past the car, he notices that it's not 3 women, it's 2 women dragging a mannequin with them. He's taking photos of all this. He sees them approach the gate, unlock it, and go around the back of the house where they're then out of view. He is too scared to get out of his car, rightly so. But he just has the worst feeling in his stomach, and he's thinking, I can't let these women enter this house with this couple inside. What are they going to do? What are they doing? So he calls the elderly gentleman's phone, and that's when just moments later he sees the lights turn on and he sees these 2 figures and their mannequin they're holding run away. He speaks to the old man and says, let's debrief in a few hours. I need to look at these photos and we'll have a chat about everything I've seen. So a few hours later, the old man goes into the PI's office and he shows him the photos. And at first, the old man is just so happy. He just starts crying, saying, I'm so glad it's not my wife. I'm so glad that she's not out to get me. And the PI's like, but who are these women? Why are they doing this? For 6 months they've been doing this to you. Are you sure your wife's not involved? And he says, no, we recognise these women. They were shunned from my wife's book club a few years ago. They're not all there and they just go about tormenting people. Sorry, what? 2 elderly women have dressed a mannequin to look like your wife. They're entering your house at 4 a.m. every single morning, staring at you. And you're telling me your wife doesn't know this and only you're waking up? Anyway, that's a true story. People are weird. Just imagine, what would you do? Elderly women at most playing this prank on an old man. Give him an heart attack. Maybe that was their goal. Maybe it was their goal. Or maybe it was something a little bit more sinister. Maybe it was something more of the occult. What do you think?
82% of CIA agents are men, which is crazy to me because one time I used a guy's public Venmo transaction history and his Twitter likes to figure out that he was also seeing a girl across the country. And I just don't believe a man could do that.
Do not listen to this story, and I think this is the scariest one I've gotten so far for spooky scary story time. And honestly, I hate this story. When I read it, the hair on my arms was like standing on end, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Just watch it in the daytime, so save it for later if you need to, but literally don't watch it at night because I did and it freaked me out. The story was submitted by this guy named Tom, who told me he wanted to tell me about his experience moving with his girlfriend during 2020. Tom is obviously not his real name. He wanted to be anonymous, but he will be reading the comments. So Tom and this girl, Michelle, are dating for like 3 years. They're living in a big city. I don't know which one he didn't say. They live a really good, comfortable life. Tom works in IT, and his girlfriend, Michelle, is an instructor at a yoga studio, and they both do pretty well. They're both really healthy, really fit. They love being social, going out. No mental health issues at all, right? Tom also said that Michelle made a lot of money on social media. She was sort of an influencer, and she did a lot with different fitness brands, and she would film a lot in her studio. 2020 hits, and Michelle is immediately laid off because the yoga studio closed, but Tom was able to work remotely because he was doing that mostly anyway. Their apartment is really expensive, and their lease is coming up, and they basically decide that they want a quieter life because they don't know how long everything that was going on in 2020 was going to last. So they ended up signing a lease for a place that was about 50 minutes outside the city in more of like a rural area. He said it was still kind of suburban, like there were stores around and places for them to go and get groceries, like not super country, definitely not what they were used to in the city. And when they moved out there, they were really excited because it was a change of scenery for them, and they were saving money to buy a house. So rent was a lot cheaper, and they were both happy with the move. Everything's fine. Tom sets up his office. Michelle has the spare bedroom as her yoga studio where she's going to continue filming content, and things seemed perfect. A couple months after they move, Michelle decides that she wants to get into gardening. She was obviously already really into health and fitness and wellness, but she decided she wanted to be more into sustainability and was starting to like make more videos about sustainability. So she has Tom go in the backyard and basically dig a giant pit where they're going to start a compost pile. And Michelle's out in the yard and she's like planting some vegetables that she had gotten, and Tom calls her over because his shovel hits this like metal box. So she comes over to look, and they pull out this, he described it as maybe like a 12x6 just metal cash box. And it's all dirty and rusty, but they pull it up and Michelle opens it, and inside is a Ouija board. And Tom is immediately kind of like put off by this. Like he doesn't really believe in that stuff, but he also doesn't like it. And Michelle's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I'm going to make some videos on this. And she takes it out and walks back up onto their patio with it and starts like dusting it off on their patio table. They kind of leave it out there, forget about it. And later that night, Michelle's like, oh, do you want to go play with the Ouija board? And Tom's like, not really. Like, you know, he said that they were really into Tiger King at the time. He just wanted to like watch that and hang out. And she was like more into going outside and playing with the Ouija board. So she's like, well, I'm just going to go play with it if you don't want to. And he's like, okay, whatever. And he just stayed inside and watched TV. The next day they wake up, Tom logs into his computer to start work, and Michelle, he said, was kind of just groggy, which was pretty out of character for her because she's normally pretty bouncy. She was a morning person. She would always wake up at like 6 a.m. with him, but she's just like slinking around the kitchen. And he's like, are you okay? And she's like, I just don't feel well. She's like, I don't think I'm going to make any content today. I think I actually have been like having the urge to paint. I'm going to go to the store and get some painting supplies. And he's like, okay, cool. He's working. She comes home with like a bunch of canvases and some paint. And she basically converts like half of her yoga studio into this painting area. And she spends the rest of the day doing that. The next day, same thing. She just wants to paint. She's not really feeling well, doesn't feel like making content, doesn't feel like doing yoga. This goes on for like a week, and one night he wakes up and she's not in bed. So he gets up to go to the bathroom, and then he notices like she's not in the house. So he sees the patio light is on, and he walks to the back door and he looks out and he sees her sitting at the patio table playing with the Ouija board. And he opens the door and he's like, Michelle, come inside. Like, what are you doing? And she's just like, oh, like I just wanted to see if I would get anything. And he gets this unsettled, anxious feeling in the pit of his stomach. Because now he really does not like the Ouija board. The next day she's painting and he walks in the room and he's like, hey, like, I think we should talk about the Ouija board. I don't think you should have it. Like, I think you should get rid of it. I don't really like the idea of it in our house. And she's like, you're being dramatic. You know, I'm going through something. Like, it's a fun activity for me. I don't have a lot of fun in my life. My job was shut down. And so he just drops it. And he's like, okay, you're right. Like, I'm overreacting. So later he feels kind of bad and he goes back in her studio and she's still sitting there in silence painting. And he said on the canvas, it was just like a bunch of triangles that were all overlapping all over. And he basically tells her that he feels like they haven't really had a good like date night, obviously since 2020 started. He's like, why don't we have a fire in the backyard? We can just like grill some food. Like, it'll just be really fun. And she just tells him flat out no. Like, she just wants to paint. So he goes to bed and she is still painting that day. So he wakes up in the middle of the night again. She is still not in bed and he hears her talking. So he goes, okay, well, she's just making a video. So he peeks into her yoga studio and she's not making a video. She is still painting, but now she is painted off the canvases onto the walls and it's still the same overlapping triangles on every single surface around her. And he's like, Michelle, what are you doing? And she turns around and looks at him and says, I found the door. And at this point he realizes like she is not right. Like, she's having some kind of mental break. So the next day they wake up, same thing, she wants to paint, and he calls her mom and he basically tells her mom that Michelle is going through something and she needs to snap out of it. And he asks her mom if she'll come and stay with them. Her mom has like nothing going on, I guess, because the next day she comes and stays with them. And Michelle seems normal when her mom is there. Like, she basically pulls Tom aside and she's like, I don't know why you called me. Like, obviously I'm happy to spend time with you guys, but she seems normal to me. And Tom's like, she's not normal. Like, I'm telling you, she's not normal. That night, her mom comes and wakes Tom up because Michelle is back outside playing with the Ouija board again. And her mom is super religious, so she does not like the Ouija board idea at all. She's like, you guys need to get rid of it. Like, why did you get her this? And Tom's like, I didn't get her for it. We found it in the yard. The mom's like, oh my God, you found it in the yard? And she's like, we are getting rid of this right now. Like, we are going to burn it. And she makes Tom make her a fire where they burn the Ouija board. And Michelle just maintains, like, you guys are overreacting. Like, this is just like a fun activity. Like, it's not even serious. Doesn't have any strong reaction to them burning the Ouija board aside from just like being annoyed. So it's the next night. Her mom is going to leave the next day, and Tom wakes up in the middle of the night to her mom screaming, and he runs out in the hallway and he sees Michelle sitting in the dark facing the wall, just at the end of the hallway, like facing away from them, sitting cross-legged, staring at the wall. And her mom is yelling, like, what are you doing? Like, get up. And Michelle does not react. Like, it's like she can't hear them. She's just repeating, they're going to come in, they're going to come in, they're going to come in. So Tom runs over and grabs her, picks her up, and like basically shakes her. She snaps out of it and she's like, what's going on? And they're like, you were literally just talking to the wall. So her mom has had enough. She decides that she's going to bring Michelle home with her. She's like, I need to take her to church. Like, I don't like this. And Tom can't really argue with her. He's sad to see Michelle go, but he thinks it's just temporary and he has to work. So he stays at the house when Michelle and her mom leave. I don't know where they lived, but he said it was like within a day's drive and he could go, and he visited her a few times and she seemed fine. Apparently at her parents' house, she kept doing weird stuff at night to the point where they had her committed. Everybody is attributing this to a psychological break from the stresses of COVID and her being laid off. Tom is beside himself, but is trying to be as supportive as he can. He's in constant contact with her mom. And about 2 weeks after she gets checked into this mental facility, Tom is cleared to visit her. So he packs up, drives out to the mental hospital. She's sitting in this cool toned room in a rocking chair when he gets there, and he walks up to her and he's like, hey, how are you doing? And she just looks at him and says, you brought them with you. Oh my God, that freaked me out so bad when I read that. Oh my God. Keep sending me these stories. Tom said Michelle still is in this facility. She has obviously gained a lot of weight. She does not do yoga anymore. She does not make content. He said she has completely lost her mind and barely recognizes him when he goes to see her. A really good one that someone sent me, and I will be adding it to this